The Sahara Desert isn't silent. People who've never stood in the middle of it think it is, but they're wrong. Out there, the wind breathes. It sighs. It hisses, it warns, and sometimes it hunts. Jonah Malik had heard those stories since he was a child growing up in Marrakesh. His grandmother used to tell him that the desert was alive, that it swallowed people, not because it wanted to kill, but because it wanted to keep. He always thought they were just stories, until the day he found himself standing alone, blinded by sand, listening to the wind whisper his name. It began on a Thursday morning. Jonah, a logistics driver for a humanitarian group, was joining a 6-vehicle convoy delivering medical supplies to a remote clinic near Tamanrasset. He had driven deserts before, crossed dunes taller than houses, handled heat that could melt the plastic off a dashboard. That he was prepared, or so he thought. The convoy rolled out just after sunrise. 6 white utility trucks, fresh water tanks full, food packed, radios buzzing. The air shimmered with heat even at 8 a.m. Beside Jonah in the passenger seat was Dr. Amara Ndebele, a volunteer physician from Nairobi. Calm eyes, neat braids, a quiet confidence that carried through every word she spoke. "You ever been this far into the Sahara?" she asked, adjusting her seatbelt. "Not this route," Jonah replied. "But it's supposed to be straightforward." Supposed to be. They followed a track carved by decades of humanitarian missions. Part gravel, part hardened sand. The sky overhead was clear and pale blue. The kind of sky that looked harmless, right before it turned violent. 3 hours in, everything was normal. For hours in, one of the younger drivers, Kareem, radioed in. "Anyone else feeling that wind shift?" "Relax," the convoy leader replied. "It's nothing." But Jonah knew better. His grandmother's warnings echoed in his head. When the wind changes without clouds, run. He should have listened. At 12:42 p.m., the sky darkened. It was subtle at first, as if the sun put on sunglasses. The wind stopped, paused, then hit them like a slap. A wall of dust rose on the horizon. Not a cloud. Not a storm. A wall. A moving mountain of sand stretching from one end of the horizon to the other. A haboob. The deadliest kind of sandstorm. The convoy leader's voice crackled over the radio. "Everyone increase speed. We need to outrun it." But outrunning a Sahara haboob is like trying to outrun nightfall. Jonah pressed harder on the gas. The truck rattled violently as wheels fought against loose sand. Amara gripped the dashboard. "Is that what I think it is?" "Yeah," Jonah said. "But we're gonna make it. Hold on." But the storm was moving faster than any of them expected. Within minutes, visibility dropped to 50 meters. Then 20. Then 5. The sound was unreal, like 1,000 knives scraping metal. Sand pelted the truck with such force it sounded like hailstones made of glass. "Keep formation," the leader shouted. But he was shouting into chaos. The storm swallowed the last truck first. Then the next. Jonah watched in horror through the side mirror as the caravan behind him vanished. Vehicles erased by a swirling vortex of red and brown. "Where is everyone?" Amara cried. "We have to stop," Jonah yelled back. But stopping was suicide. Visibility was near zero. If another truck crashed into them from behind, it would crush them like paper. "Radio check," the convoy leader barked. No response. One by one, the radios fell silent. The desert, alive and hunting, had taken them. Jonah tried to keep the truck straight. Wind slammed into them sideways with brute force. Then, a dark shape appeared in front of the windshield. A dune? A rock? Another vehicle? There was no time to steer. No time to think. The impact was instant and violent. Metal screamed. Glass exploded. The truck rolled once, twice, before slamming onto its side. Jonah's vision blurred. Ringing filled his ears. Sand poured in through the shattered window like water through a broken aquarium. "Amara!" he shouted. No answer. He tried again, louder. Still no response. Jonah unbuckled himself and crawled across the tilted cabin. He found her slumped against the door, unconscious but breathing. "Thank God!" He shook her gently, but she didn't wake. Outside, The world was nothing but swirling red. The desert roared. He needed to get them out before the truck buried them alive. With his shoulder, he forced the upper door open a crack. Sand pushed in instantly, whipping into his eyes and mouth. He climbed out first, then pulled Amara through the opening, holding her against his chest as the wind nearly tore her from his arms. He stumbled down the dune and crouched behind the overturned truck for shelter. They weren't safe. Not even close. The storm was just beginning. The storm lasted 3 hours. 3 brutal, suffocating hours. By the time it finally eased, the world around Jonah was unrecognizable. The convoy was gone. The tracks were gone. His truck was half buried, and the horizon was a flat, smooth sea of dunes stretching endlessly. Pure silence. Even the wind seemed to be holding its breath. Amara groaned faintly. Jonah knelt beside her. Hey, stay with me. She blinked slowly, dazed but alive. Are we safe? She whispered. Jonah looked around. The truth was a knife in his stomach. We're alive, he said. That's what matters right now. He helped her sit up. They had half a tank of water, 1 day's worth of food, a damaged radio with a broken antenna, a scorching desert stretching thousands of kilometers, and no sign of the other trucks. No road, no smoke, no footprints. Nothing. The Sahara had wiped everything clean, like a chalkboard before class. They worked together to salvage what they could from the wreck. A half-crushed medical pack, 2 blankets, a pocket knife, and a flare gun with 1 round. The sky darkened quickly. Night in the desert falls like a hammer, instant and cold. They found a shallow rock formation and crawled inside. Jonah used the blankets to create a barrier against the freezing air. For hours, neither of them spoke. Finally, Amara whispered, "Do you think anyone survived?" Jonah didn't answer immediately. He didn't know. "I think they'll look for us," he said. "We stick together. We conserve our strength." Amara nodded weakly, but Jonah could tell she was terrified. So was he. That night he couldn't sleep. Not because of the cold, but because he heard something. Something shifting under the sand. Not the wind. Not an animal. Something bigger. Moving. He told himself it was exhaustion. He was wrong. Morning brought heat that felt angry. Jonah and Amara rationed water, drank only a sip. Their lips cracked, their skin burned. They decided to walk north, toward where the nearest outpost should have been. Jonah marked their direction using the sun and a compass app on his cracked phone. It might not last long. But it was something. The sand was soft and deep, swallowing their steps. Every dune they climbed felt like climbing a building. Every descent felt like sliding into an oven. By midday, their water was half gone. Around 2 p.m., Amara collapsed. Jonah rushed to her side. "I'm okay," she gasped. "I'm okay. Just give me a minute." "You need water. So do you." He tore a strip of cloth from the blanket, wet it with a tiny splash of water, and pressed it to her lips. She whispered, "Thank you." They continued. Then Jonah saw something. Shadows moving behind a ridge of dunes. Dark shapes. Humanoid shapes. "Amara," he whispered urgently. "Someone's there." She squinted through the heat haze. "Are you sure?" Jonah's heart pounded. "Yeah, I see people." He waved both arms. "Hey, over here." The shapes didn't react. He tried again, shouting louder. Still nothing. Then the shapes shimmered, blurred, twisted into nothing. Heat mirages. Jonah cursed under his breath. The desert was mocking them. By the 3rd day, their situation was desperate. They had no water left. Their throats felt like cracked leather. Their vision blurred. Amara stumbled frequently now. Jonah caught her each time. "You need to rest," he insisted. "No," she whispered. "If I stop, I won't get up again." By late afternoon, Jonah heard it again. A low rumble under the sand. Not thunder. Not wind. Movement. Something alive. He froze. "Amara, do you hear that?" She leaned on him, barely conscious. "No, what is it?" Jonah didn't answer. He didn't know. but he could feel it beneath the soles of his boots, as if something enormous was shifting underneath them. The desert, alive, just like his grandmother warned. Near sunset, Jonah spotted a dark structure far ahead. A building, square, solid. Amara, look! Her eyes widened with weak hope. Is that real? I think so. They used the last of their strength to reach it. When they arrived, Jonah touched the stone wall. Solid. Cold. Not a mirage. A real abandoned way station. An old French Foreign Legion outpost half buried by time. Inside they found shade, broken crates, old tools, and a well. Jonah rushed to it and looked inside. Empty. Dry for decades. He slammed his fist against the stone. No, 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 no. Amara collapsed against the wall. Jonah sat beside her, breathing hard. This place used to save people, he muttered. Now it's a tomb. Amara rested her head on his shoulder. Her voice was a ghost. Jonah, if I don't make it. No. Listen to me. No, Amara. Promise me you won't give up. Jonah swallowed hard. We both survive, he whispered. Or none of this matters. He didn't know if he believed his own words. The desert didn't care. The wind rose at 3 a.m. Jonah woke instantly. The air inside the outpost vibrated. Dust fell from the ceiling. The wind outside screamed like a siren. Another storm. Worse than the first. He shook Amara awake. We need to take cover. They huddled inside a storage room and blocked the door with crates. The storm hit with the force of a bomb. Sand blasted through cracks in the walls. The entire building shook. The roar was deafening. Jonah wrapped his arms around Amara to shield her. Stay awake, he shouted. She nodded weakly. Then, a loud crack split the air. One of the outer walls collapsed. Sand surged inside like a flood. The floor trembled. Then Jonah heard it again. The rumbling. The shifting. Not above. Not around. Below. Something was moving beneath the outpost. Something big. He stared at the floor as grains of sand vibrated and danced. What is that? Amara whispered. Jonah didn't know, and he didn't want to find out. When the storm finally weakened, the outpost was half destroyed. Jonah and Amara crawled out through a gap in the wall, and they found it. Tracks. Not human. Not tires. Something dragged across the sand, leaving grooves wider than a truck. Amara's voice trembled. Please tell me that's just the wind. Jonah shook his head slowly. The wind doesn't make tracks. She closed her eyes, tears forming. We're not alone out here. Jonah looked at the endless dunes. No, he whispered. We're not. With no shelter left, they walked again. Their bodies were failing. Their minds drifting. The sun a hammer. The sand a burning sea. By mid-afternoon, Amara collapsed again. This time she didn't get up. Jonah fell to his knees beside her. No, not now. Not here. He lifted her into his arms, but his legs shook violently. She opened her eyes slightly. Jonah, leave me. Not happening. You can make it alone. I'm not leaving you. She gave him a faint, heartbreaking smile. You're stubborn. Yeah. But he couldn't carry her. He could barely stand. So he sat beside her, holding her hand, letting the desert wind wrap around them. Then a sound. A distant rumble. Jonah turned his head sharply. The sound grew louder. Engines. Real engines. He staggered to his feet, waving both arms wildly. Hey! Here. Over here. A cluster of vehicles appeared over a dune, military desert patrol trucks. Jonah screamed until his throat tore. They saw him. They changed course. And within minutes, soldiers surrounded them, lifting Amara onto a stretcher, handing Jonah water, shielding them both from the sun. His vision blurred with relief. Amara whispered, You did it. But Jonah shook his head. No, we did. Then consciousness faded. Jonah woke in a medical tent 2 days later. Dehydrated. Exhausted. Alive. Amara lay in the bed beside him, stable, recovering. Commander entered. You're lucky, he said. We almost didn't find you. Jonah hesitated. What about the others? The rest of the convoy? The commander's face shifted. We found all 6 trucks. Jonah swallowed. Any survivors? The commander looked away. No. A heavy silence filled the tent. Jonah felt his chest tighten. They were scattered. The commander continued. Miles apart. The storm tore them off course. Jonah closed his eyes. What about the tracks? He asked quietly. The thing under the sand. The commander paused, then gave a slow, uneasy nod. We've heard reports, he said. For years. Movements underground. Strange seismic readings. But nothing confirmed. Jonah stared at the canvas ceiling. His grandmother's words echoed again. The desert keeps what it takes. But Jonah and Amara, they were the ones it let go. Not because they were stronger. Not because they were smarter. But because sometimes, for reasons no one understands, the Sahara decides. Weeks later, Jonah returned to Marrakesh. He stood at his grandmother's old house, listening to the wind move through the courtyard. It wasn't silent. It never was. Sometimes, late at night, Jonah still heard that underground rumble. Sometimes he woke up tasting sand. But he also remembered something else. Amara's hand in his, her voice saying, "Don't give up." The way the sun looked when the rescue arrived. He survived the Sahara. And the desert remembered his name. Because some places in this world don't just test you. They judge you. And Jonah Malik was one of the very few the Sahara decided to spare.